2022 showing sections. And I'm Exodus from Hong Kong, and currently I am the NOC of co-NOC of Hong Kong and the co-National Astronomy Education Coordinator from Hong Kong. And today my sharing will be related to some STEM-related education and some approaches about latest engagement or some new innovative methods to motivate students on learning. So welcome for joining today's sharing sections. And as you can see, it's very great to have some interactions with more and more astronomy lovers, educators, science communicator, and amateur astronomers through the online platforms, and then we could have more interactions. Not only do we celebrate the 100 hours of astronomy global events, it's also the celebration of the World Space Week. Personally, I am also a coordinator of Hong Kong of the World Space Week. And today's sharing section will be related to the STEAM education. How can we apply STEAM on astronomy learning, educations? For example, how could we motivate students or our target audience to learn astronomy and space science by DIY? Do it yourself or learning by making, to build some blocks to allow them to have some constructive engagement in their daily learning. So today my focus will be related to some sharing about how do we using some blocks to motivate, or how can we apply it in our daily science communication, or how can we use it for promoting popular science. And actually, STEM+A Astronomy is actually a program, a social innovative program to collaborating with different societies and schools, organizations in order to provide better innovative learning on astronomy. And we really wish to popularize astronomy to a lot more people to know about science, the importance of science and space arts, and the application of astronomy in our daily life. So this is my abstract for today's sharing. Mostly will be related to some reframing of traditional understanding of, for example, we try to build some telescope. It's always time consuming that we always need some time to construct a lot of things. It always requires a lot of skills and techniques in engineering fields. For example, we try to use some DIY maker, 3D printer. We really need some maker skills. For example, how could we build the mirror of the telescope? How could we try to use different materials to build up a telescope model, to build some prototype, constructive. However, for some students or some people, what if they don't have many basic backgrounds of science? They are not really good at constructing things. But how could we motivate them to be creative, to be achievable, to make something about astronomy, to engage in the constructive process of learning astronomy through building blocks? For example, there are some examples such as Lego, Nanoblock, mini block. So there are a lot of different constructive tools which might be helpful for be considered as a part of educational tool. Besides the traditional one, for example, traditionally we always talk about some programming, some STEM, robotics, or some machine learning, really high-tech stuff, but we try to make it more down-to-earth, more low-tech, or more accessible to different people without the barriers of ages, resources, or I try to make something more and more engageable for different people. So today my sharing will be focusing on some real examples, my personal examples on building blocks to apply on astronomy. So it allows you to customize different things, especially for the design, with the shapes or the color combinations in the low-tech requirements. So it might not really require a lot of different skills, but allow you to really engage in learning process, the experiential learning progress. So actually, STEM+A Astronomy is actually a program, a project that's supported by the NAEC Hong Kong and NOC Hong Kong. So we try to facilitate with the Chinese community to collaborating with different people to figure out some latest innovative methods to promote popular science, interacting with different people, and what is called the STEM+A is actually the integrating of science, technology, engineering, mathematics into the arts. Not only the traditional visual arts, but also including some music, some other multimedia to allow people, not only astronomers or educators, but other people from different fields or walks of life to really engage in the science communication or the interaction of the science literacies and to have some discussions about the latest discovery, or we have some chances to exchange ideas. So you can see a really iconic, a really nice character, cartoon characters right here. So it's actually called the Astroman, Timanyan Astroman. So it's actually a virtual iconic character to engage as a character, to interact with people, to share some popular science message, experience on astrophotography and stargazing, and also some science communication sharing. So traditionally, how to use a telescope. So there are a lot of different methods. So traditionally, we could use some image demonstration. So you can see for the first page, the left-hand side, you can see image with labeling. So showing people with some label of different structures or how to use to build a telescope for the demonstration. And more than that, a hands-on demonstration of the structure of telescope, how to set up the mount, how to set up a balanced telescope, how to adjust the eyepiece, the observational, how to detect or how to find an astronomical object. So it's all about the learning progress. It's more practical, but at the same time, it's really time consuming because for some situations that we might not really able to set up telescope with just only in so there are some limitations to set up telescope. We might not be able to set it up in a short period of time. So we always need some time to set it up. And how could be more efficient to allow people to engage, to understand how the telescope work. So it would be a bit time consuming every time when we try to setting up a whole telescope more than 30 minutes or a lot of time spent to demonstrate to people or to the children or to the students. So how could we think of something more engageable? For example, demonstration is only a one-side communications from the instructor. But however, how can we interact to allow our audience, our participants really engaging in understanding the mechanisms of the optical telescope? How can we see the distance objects through the telescope? So it's all about some skills, but we really need to popularize or really need to think how to be accessible to allow more people to really engaging in learning by doing. So more than that, traditionally, if we try to build a telescope, it's time consuming. We really need to use a lot of tools, a lot of materials. We need a lot of time to make a real Dobsonian telescope or refracting telescope. It required engineering techniques. Or in the other options that we could try to buy more telescope for allowing the ambassadors, allowing the younger generation or the audience to learn how to operate the telescopes. So besides that, there are more high-tech options in the recently. So for example, the 3D print telescope. So we can try to customize different design of the telescope by using some online software, and it always required some computational programming or some operation of using some softwares for the online. So today I want to share some ideas. What about building blocks? So there are a lot of materials needed and really expensive, or in some cases, it requires some preliminary requirement for how you understand the engineering or computational backgrounds, how you really know how to operate or how to build it, how to build a telescope. So how to be more accessible to our audience with different ages. For example, building blocks is not necessarily to be some famous brand, for example, Lego or Nanoblock, but we could try. It allows some spaces for us to learn in the following with different points. For example, we learn the shapes and colors. So it allowed children to have some imaginations on how to think. For example, the design thinking allowed them to have some basic thoughts of their desired design of the telescope, and how could we motivate them to develop some motor skills. For example, by building telescope, it's easy to allow you to remove it. It's allowed you to do something wrong. So it allows some it allowed you for any failure, because you could just simply remove it, to rebuild it, restructure it. So it allowed you to be flexibly build telescope based on your imagination or your first impression of how a telescope looks. So it allowed you to have some communications, to talk to more people, to interact with more people, and allowed you to have some creative thinking of understanding the mechanism of telescope, because you really can build any shape, any colors, any form of telescope. So there will be more flexibilities that allowed you to have some chances for the trial and error. So it allowed you to focus, to concentrate your design or what you're trying to build up. You might not be really anxious, because even though you build something wrong, and you can still remove it to rebuild it, and having some interactions with more people when we are all building up the telescope. So you could actually build anything you like, or anything easily you're thinking of, or just in your imaginations. For example, for the instrument, try to build a virtual character. So for the science communication, so try to build it, and just simple, just using some online software to think of the basic shape of the design pixel arts, and to think of the basic shape, color, and the materials used is actually some mini box for the shading of the whole virtual characters. And more than that, if you really have a prototype, so it's actually a prototype. So you build it, it's just like a prototype, it's a basic design. You can modify it with a bigger model, you can modify it with more details. But I think the most important thing is try to build at least one thing. It doesn't need to be really, really perfect. So it could just be something like really simple shape or simple design. And then more than that, you could try to build a larger scale based on your design of the thing you were trying to build up. For example, instrument, you can see I try to magnify the whole size of the design, and you can see more details, a better shape, better design of the body, the body scales, and a lot of different parameters. And besides, we could also try to build some complicated structure. So actually, there are a lot of different kit sets or some existing building blocks sets available in the market. So, for example, the Saturn V rockets, you can see demonstrating different structure of the view. Saturn V based on the scales, the design, with a perfect design. You can see it's really good for demonstrating to the students to understand the structure of the Saturn V rockets, because it's not really easy if you try to see it in Hong Kong, because we rarely see any rockets places, just some display or some installation arts, but it might be really different if they could have chances, our target audience could have chances to really touch it, to construct it, to build it, to separate the whole part, the different stages of the Saturn V telescope, to understand the lunar escape system, the Apollo commander module, and the Apollo surface module, and the lunar module, to understand different parts. They can understand different parts of the rockets. We could try to simulate the whole progress of the lunar exploration. So once the rocket gets to the space, it just separates, and a lot of different steps, allowing people to really separate it, to understand different structure, the purpose, how could they work, the mechanism of each part of the stages. So it's a really good chances experiential learning to really learn by touching it, learning by seeing it, learning by understanding the scales of each part, understanding the importance of the space explorations. So there are further readings about the structure of this Saturn V rocket. If you're interested, please feel free to just to scan the QR code right here for more informations. And you could check out the really detail a lot of different historical developments, backgrounds, and you can see different parts of the Saturn V rockets. So besides it, there are a lot of different demonstration. If we talk about the space science, for example, the lunar lander. So you can see a really great model, very clear model to understand different structure, especially for the lunar lander. It's really complicated, allowing our target audience really know the function of each parts, each structures of the lunar lander, and understanding the importance of the astronautic development and aerospace development. So yeah, just the same demonstration. If you're really interested about each part of the lunar landers, please feel free to scan the QR code for more information about the block sets of the lunar lander. And you can see a lot of different consideration. I think it's really great to have some really existing space science related kit sets or building sets. From more than that, we could also demonstrate a lot of different, for example, the astronauts, for allowing the next generation to understand the structure of some large-scale astronautical things. For example, the rockets, the space shuttle, the Hubble telescopes, the lunar lander, the Endeavour space shuttle, a lot of, or even the International Space Station satellites. There are a lot of different existing block sets, allowing for the next generation or to understand, or allowing the science communicator to demonstrate the whole structure. However, there are some limitations. For example, LEGO as a case in point. We can see that many sets of them may have the astronauts. However, we might not be able to understand each part the function of the spacesuits, the usage of the spacesuits, and the function, how it works. So actually, there are a lot of different complicated structures, especially for the educators or science communicator. We are really hard to demonstrate or illustrate them clearly, unless we try only to speak it out, to mention it through some label diagrams, or to release, or we're trying out to play some related 3D videos. However, how could we make astronomy more touchable? So actually, I have some engagement or trying some attempts to allow for your science communications to really understand the structure of an astronaut's spacesuit. So please wait for a while, and I'm trying to demonstrate something right now. So let me just remove the virtual backgrounds. So today I prepare a model, a model building by blocks. So it's really great for the demonstration of the spacesuits for the astronauts. So as you can see, it's actually a model of the. Okay, so I'm trying out for a better lighting. So you can see it's actually an astronaut's model, and it's really funny that there are two different parts of it. So for the right hand side, for the right hand side part, you can see that it demonstrates the external structure of the spacesuits. However, on the left hand side, you can see, and on the side, you can see, it demonstrates the mechanical structure and the internal structure of the astronaut. So including at the back, so demonstrating different parts of the requirement of what actually an astronaut is wearing. So we're always curious about the spacesuits. However, this is a really good demonstration model, allowing our participants, when they are trying to build it or trying to touch it, to move it. So allow them to have some chances to understand the science behind the spacesuits and the importance of the protections of the spacesuits from the radioactive environment, how they can support the astronauts to be available to move freely on the moon. How can they be able to be adaptive to the extreme weather, extreme temperature and environment? So allowing us to have more understanding with the astronauts demonstration, a model, a 3D model, building by blocks. So you can see a lot of different parts. It's really great for a demonstration, because many times when we try to talk to the general public, especially in the public lecture or some sharing sections, it's really great to have some real models to allow it. So there are a lot of different formats for the demonstration, allowing, for example, we allow people to have a really short circle and allowing them to touch it, to understand each part of it. Modern day, there are more better technology, for example, the AR or virtual realities, allowing us to use some technologies to understand, to have some holographical projections of different parts of the astronaut spacesuits, or understanding the structure of the astronaut spacesuits. So I think it's really interesting, because it really movable is not only a part of display. So it's not only a display model. So it's not only just only a stand model to place it without any other demonstration of science. And I think building blocks allow you to have some flexibilities to build different structures with more flexibilities and creativity space, allowing you to try it out, to have some attempts to build anything you like, or even complicated structures. So it's a really great model for demonstrating science. And yeah, I truly hope you will like this model right here. Yeah, I really wish you will like this model. And just a second, I think. So, okay. So it's almost all right. I think it's all right. And oops. Okay, so yeah, it's all right for the demonstration. Yeah, I missed something. So I missed right hand right here. So yeah, I reinstall it. So it's not a really complete setup. So just a second. Okay, so I think it's really great because many times when we try to share some models, it's really hard that we really find a really functional astronaut space suits for the demonstrations, especially in some Asian places or European Asian places, especially in Hong Kong, we rarely see a real space suits. However, if we try to use some 3D model, so it allows us to really have a chances to show to the general public or really allowing people to touch it, to move it. So you can see there are a lot of different structures of the astronaut spacesuits. Okay, right here. So I wish all of you will like this model. Yeah, because I think that's really great model because showing a lot of different detailed structures for demonstrations. Different parts of it. So including the hands, his hand, his leg. So I think it's really great for just like one kind of demonstrations for using some blocks for demonstrating some complicated structure of some space mission or some astronomical objects. For example, the model of solar system and some deep sky objects 3D model for demonstrations. Okay, so let me get back to the sharing part of. So yeah, and you can see that a lot of different structures and parts for the astronauts. So we tried to simplify for using some hands-on demonstrations to our audience, to the general public, or to the students. So I think it's really great that comparing to the Apollo missions, really demonstrate a lot of details that we might not easily understand if we try really looking at the 2D images. So it's really hard to really understand the internal mechanisms. But if we have chances to touch it, to see a replicate 3D model, it's really great to allow the audience to understand how the space should work, how can it be functional to adaptive to different environments, to some extreme situation or scenarios. So there are a lot of different types of blocks or Legos, mini blocks, a lot of different existing possibilities, different things that you could really build up by using blocks, including the space shuttle, you see, some rockets, some the Mars rover, as I can see, some the Saturn V rockets, and yeah, there are a lot of different things that you could try to build by building blocks. So for the one purpose, so we can try to use blocks to build model that is helpful for the demonstration when we are trying to communicating with others about astronomy. So what's about astronomy? So it's really hard to see some existing sets for some astronomy related blocks sets in the market. So how could we teach observational astronomy by building blocks? So I use telescope as an example. So in the picture you can see it's actually a wing-shaped dome. Usually we use it for operating some robotic telescope or eye telescopes. So how could we try to allow our audience really engaging in building telescope by using blocks? So for the demonstration purpose, so there are a lot of different telescope model. As I've mentioned, LEGO can build many things, as many as we can imagine. For example, the Dobsonian telescope model, you see there are different structures, including the Dobsonian mount, the refracting telescope, and you can see different parts of it. For example, the finder scope, eyepieces, objective lens. So there are a lot of different things that we could try to build and to demonstrate how it works. So how the Dobsonian, how we adjust the angles of Dobsonian in order to have a better stargazing experience observing astronomical objects. So I think, I think it's a really great stuff, because every time when we try to build a Dobsonian telescope, or we try to demonstrate a real Dobsonian telescope, is really time consuming. It spent a long time to build it, to demonstrate to our audience how to use it. But I think if we have some smaller model, it could be portable. So we could use it, we could take it to different places for the public sharing, to interacting with the general public to understand the mechanisms and the operations of the telescope, different types of telescope, by using some smaller model. It's better. It's always better than a PowerPoint sharing, because I think 3D model allowing people to be accessibly, inclusively engaging to understand. They could touch it. They could see different parts, different angles of the telescope set model. So besides the Dobsonian refracting telescope, there are more and more different sets. For example, the refracting telescope. So it's actually an experimental attempt for me, because I'm trying to build a refracting telescope Mark I for demonstration as a prototype for demonstrating how to build a telescope, for telescope making by building blocks. So considering some limitations, so I tried to build a square tube as an example. So I'm using some Lego for demonstrating it. Of course, there are a lot of other possible materials we can use, but I think a Lego or some related blocks would be more stable, sustainably usable to take it to different places with different colors. For example, firstly, I just build the external structure of the telescope that I wanted, and I try to treat on the eyepiece with the lenses. So yeah, this is what I have built, the telescope with different color, rainbow color, and it's a simple prototype using the square tube model, because you can see, allowing you to see distant objects, to understand how can we see, to understand the magnification of the objects, the images, so allowing us to see different things. So it's actually really useful for scientific education, because allowing the audience to really build a telescope and understand the scientific knowledge behind and the theory behind the refracting mechanisms. So it's not really heavy, and I'm trying to build a model. Of course, when you try, if you really wish to have a better quality with a larger size telescope for better observation of the deep sky objects, I strongly recommend you to build a bigger telescope by using Lego, because it's more flexible, to allow you to build different shape, different design in the outer part, so allowing you to have more creativity, to have more applications on building anything you like without limitations. So I'm trying out, because I think it's still a bit heavy for building a traditional refracting telescope. So I try to minimize the size of it. So what can I do? So I try to build another type of refracting telescope. For example, the Truss tube. So just using less. I could say that it's using less Lego, using less block to build it. I try to replace it by using more stick designed structure, so you could see the clearer, the better images for in the following pages. So you can see, I try to reduce the usage of a really thick structure. Of course, there are some limitations. For example, there are some external light pollutions or external light affecting the quality of observation. So I could replace it by using some something to cover it. For example, some cloth or some other materials to cover it. But I just try to build a smaller structure, a thinner structure. And after when I place the lens on it, so you can see, it looked better. And yeah, it looked better. And I try to use different structure. So it's all about mathematics, about creativity, about design, about the understanding of beauty, understanding of the user experience. And finally, I built a Mark II model, a refracting telescope Mark II. So it looked more creative, more futurism. So yeah, so you can see, and it's really useful, because I tried to allow you to think off the box. Besides some traditional tube designed refracting telescope, allowing you to open your mind to build different shape. You could compare different shape of telescope, different size, different diameters, different support, or even you try to build something really unique. It allowed you to have some different attempts. Of course, you could try to separate it, to decompose it back to a smaller blocks in order to build another model. So it's environmental friendly, because Lego or some similar blocks allowed you to build it, to store it for many years. You don't really need much time for the maintenance or to replace it, and allowing you to build it or allowing you to decompose it to build something else. So to allow you to have some flexibilities. Of course, it's not necessarily to buy a lot of different sets of the blocks, but you could use some existing materials if you have to build a telescope for demonstration, or allowing your audience really engaging to build one in the experiential learning progress. So besides that, I tried to build another one, which is actually a reflecting telescope model. So, so I have prepared a real model right here, and it's really great because I would say, of course, it might not allow you to really see because there are no lens of it. So there's no lens of it, but allowing you to really understand how to operate a reflecting telescope. So it's really functionable. So let me demonstrate it with all of you. So you can see, actually there are a mount here, a equatorial mount right here with a weight. So you can see a really standard design because it really, and we have a better seeing the contrast. Okay, so just a moment. I try to set up a stand right here for better recording, for better display. So, okay, I think of you might be able to see it if I paste it right here. Okay, so great. So traditionally, where we can receive some really standard telescope blocks sets in the existing market. So I think it's really unique because you could see there are different structure here. Tripods, the equatorial mount, the weights, it's really functionable. You can really operate it. I think it's really good for demonstration, to demonstrate to the audience before you're really setting up a real telescope. So I think it might be able to release to minimize unnecessary time for some dangerous or conscious situations for setting up a telescope. So I think it's really great for the demonstration for setting up a telescope. So I think everything is really simple. I could just demonstrate it once right here. So I've built a basic mount. So you could just talk to so you could share it to the audience. Place it right here. Look better. Okay, so I think it's really great because it followed the traditional design of a reflecting telescope and equatorial mount. Setting up the basic structure of the equatorial, you could also to set up the weights of. Let's go right here. I think it's really great because it's not only for a display's purpose, but it also allowing you to really operate it. So you can see when I move, so I could just show it in different angles to allow you to see it. So, okay, let's see. So you could adjust the angle of the mount. It's really great for the demonstrations. Besides, not only moving upward or downward. Oh, let me check it. Yes, moving up and down. So let me add one more thing right here. The real telescope. So always reminding the participants to set up the whole equatorial mount, including the weights right here, before setting up the telescope. it look perfect. Let me just simply adjust. So you can see that something is missing. So let me show, including the finder scope to allow you to search for the stars in a better focus. Another one is actually the eyepiece. It's really detailed, so you can see there are different parts. The fundamental, the basic part of the telescope, what it actually have. So it's really great for a demonstration for some science communication workshops or teaching the general public to understand how to build a telescope. So it allows you to have a different angle to understand every part of a telescope. I think it's really great for the demonstration of science communications. Let me paste right here. I think it's a really great display and also functionable telescope setup. See, there are a lot of different model, especially this is really great to allow you to understand different parts of a refracting telescope model. For example, including the two lenses in the front and in the middle parts. It's really great to let the general public or to allow your audience to know. At least they have chances to operate once, how to set up a telescope, how to operate and understand different part of telescope before they really try a real one, because it's really expensive and there are a lot of different precautions and important things that they really have to be aware of. So let me put it down right here, put it back right here. So besides, there are a lot of different approaches. For example, we could try to use some mixed media prototype. So we try to use different materials besides traditional blocks. For example, we could try to use some high-tech or radio or computational related things. For example, the microbits, stretch, or some online or interactive tools, or some constructive tools that could be applicable or integrating with Legos or the blocks. So actually, for our podcast, strongly invite you for any inquiry or to know more about our future or supporting us. Actually, our STEM+A Astronomy podcast actually aims to explore different methods and approaches to interact with people with different backgrounds. So we have three main goals applying to these applications of building blocks on astronomy. For example, including the science communications to promote popular science by multisensory visualizations, allowing people to really have some hands-on experience to learn astronomy, not only seeing, but hearing, working, different kinds of sensory experience. Besides that, we also wish to interact with people from different fields, not only natural science, but also from other disciplines, interdisciplinary education. So, for example, design thinking is a great process for problem solving to find out different innovative approaches step by step, building prototype, learning by making, and trying out different approaches. For example, AstroX is actually one of our highlight film project. One part of our project is actually the AstroX, the crossover of astronomy with other disciplines. And more importantly, we always wish to be accessible to different people. So actually, IDEAS is actually IDEAS is actually is a really important and a really important word for our our goal to promote popular science, including the inclusion, diversity, equity, access, and special educations to allow people. So we could use building blocks to allow us to build different models, touch-on model, to allow people to really touch it, to feel it, to have some low tech requirement, really allowing them to build different things, unique thing that is not really able to find it in the marketplace. So to customize different tools or demonstrations, things to allow people to have a better understanding or experience to engage in the science communications. And I wish you have more and more experience to engage, to interact with more astronomy professionals, science communicator during the 100 hours of astronomy in more and more activities supporting by the International Astronomical Union, OAO, and supporting them. I'm really looking forward for your engagement and your support. And if you are really interested about the STEM+A Astronomy project, please feel free to scan the QR code for more informations. And please feel free to email me for more future notification, or if you have some similar project, or if you really wish to have some cross-disciplines or cross-continents interactions, I think it's really great if we have more interactions with more people from different places for multicultural or multinational cooperation or interaction or exchange about some science communication tips or ideas. I think it's really great for both of us to have more and more understanding about the application of astronomy in our daily life, to let more people to engaging in learning science and spread out to share the happiness of stargazing with more people. Thank you for everyone, and I'm Exodus. Thank you everyone. I really wish if you like this video, please feel free to share it with more people, with your friends, or someone you know about science communication, or they really like building blocks. So I think a very great tools or educational tools or medium, allowing us to interact with more people, to build blocks, to understand it, to share with more people about astronomy. And it's a really great supporting elements for science communication. And I wish you will like this. And thank you, everyone. Bye.